Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and you know what they say, the rich just keep getting richer, as mages continue to get additional updates just about every single week on the War Within Alpha, as the specs such as Arcane and Fire continue to get new talents and even new ways to amplify the overall output for the next expansion, with the class looking much more favorable every single week. It's been a second since we've done our mage overview for the War Within Alpha, but the last few builds have actually upgraded both of these playstyles further, making mage potentially a considerable choice for many as a possible main or even a viable ult going forward for the next expansion. If you're looking for a new character to level for the WoW remix, which offers a more accelerated leveling experience, the mage might be one of those classes you may want to look into, and today we're going to take a look at some of the class changes and upgrades that the specs of Fire, Arcane, as well as some of the hero talents have seen over the last few weeks on the War Within Alpha. As per always, if you guys want to see more class update videos like these for the War Within, follow the channel. Otherwise, let's dive right into mage changes. So out of all the classes, mages continue to get updates over on the alpha. It doesn't matter whether it's the very first week of the alpha or current week, they've been getting updates again and again and again. Normally what we usually would see is them focusing on a single class for the very first weeks and then moving that focus to another class, like going from mages, then to warriors, then to hunters, then to rogues, warlocks, and then monks. But they keep coming back to mages week after week after week, giving them bigger changes, smaller changes, a lot of little updates, and with the shakeup coming in for Arcane in particular, as well as all of the changes they're doing for Fire, it feels like they're really trying to get those specs right. So if anything, I think you should always have your eye out for mages, at least for the War Within, just because of the amount of attention they keep getting every single week on the alpha. But with that being said, let's take a look at some of the new stuff that mages have gotten over the last few weeks, and they continue to get stuff after stuff. We'll primarily focus on Arcane and Fire as they're getting the most amount of changes, as well as the class tree and the spec tree changes that they have gotten as well. First of all, in the class tree, they've gotten a few new things, such as a barrier diffusion talent. Whenever one of your barriers is removed, you reduce its cooldown by 4 seconds. When testing out this talent, I really wanted to find out if they meant mass barrier cooldown, but it seems that this only is going to affect your actual barrier ability, whether it is the prismatic barrier, the blazing barrier, or the ice barrier. The way the talent will work, however, is it's more of a personal defense focused, where let's say you end up using the barrier yourself. As an enemy depletes your barrier, you will get a little bit of that cooldown reduction for that barrier. And if you're in a party and you end up applying barrier to multiple targets, all of their barriers will actually help reduce the cooldown of your own personal prismatic barrier. So it's more of a defensive self-play rather than a group play, but it still does benefit the mage either way. Another set of talents you'll see here is down here below Shimmer as well as Ice Flows, we have Fire Breath in a different position. I always call it Fire Breath, but it's actually Dragon's Breath is now in a different spot, and it's now in the same choice node as Supernova. No longer an arcane talent, now becomes a class talent, which gives mages a little bit of an opportunity to knock enemies up into the air, which does provide mages with even more control options, but it does remove some control capabilities for Arcane, which normally could have access to both of these for things like PvP or Mythic Plus. But now mages either get a choice node of either a knockup on enemies or a disorient effect, which is at the same cooldown range. Also, a very controversial change that I'm not sure how I feel about, and that's going to be the choice node between Ice Nova as well as Ring of Frost. This one I'm not a big fan of because essentially what you're doing is taking two powerful crowd control based abilities and putting it together in the same node. On one hand, it does cut down in terms of the amount of keybinds you need to have as a mage, but having access to both Ring of Frost and Ice Nova was actually very powerful. And mages that were excellent at utilizing both of those abilities effectively really did feel noticeable for the rest of your party, whether it's in dungeons or whether it's in PvP. So this choice I'm a little bit not sure about, a bit of a controversial one, and it's going to be kind of like a must-have of Ice Nova, or at least most likely a must-have if you're playing the Frostfire version of Mage, because there are some frost damage interactions in there, and that will make you want to play into Ice Nova in order to amplify your overall output in AoE content. But if you really need Ring of Frost, you're almost in a way sacrificing some of that damage to a degree. I'm not a big fan of it. Hopefully this will maybe get adjusted in the future, but that is exactly where we are with the Ice Nova and Ring of Frost. And up next we have the spec of Fire, which has gotten a couple of new talent additions. First of all, you'll notice that the Fire side of the spec tree has been reworked a little bit, and I'm going to go over all of the notable little changes that have happened since the last few builds. Starting off, they finally got a talent working as of this recent build, with Pyromaniac now functional. Casting Pyroblast or Flame Strike while Hot Streak is active has an 8% chance to repeat the spell's cast at 100% effectiveness. Although, as you can see, the RNG chance of this ability is very low. Was that it there? I think that was it there. Yeah, double Pyroblast did end up proccing. So I guess sometimes you can get Pyroblasts that kind of just chain off of one another very, very quickly, which then leads into the Hyperthermia talent where combustion is not. Where while combustion is not active, consuming Hot Streak has a low chance to cause all Pyroblasts and Flame Strikes to have no cast time and be guaranteed critical strikes for 6 seconds. So I guess Pyromaniac is going to give you a little bit extra of those double ups on Flame Strikes and Pyroblasts, so essentially it should let you become this fire turret, machine gunning Pyros back to back at an enemy target. Or Flame Strikes, they're really trying to make the talent of Flame Strike also just as functional as of the last few builds. Besides this, however, we also get some updates to the Lit Fuse mechanic, which is how fire mages are going to be applying Living Bomb to enemy targets. Lit Fuse has been adjusted, so now when you do get a proc of Hot Streak, Lit Fuse is instead going to proc off of your next Fire Blast instead of your Phoenix Flame. Because depending on how you talent it, Phoenix Flames can be used as an alternative to a Fire Blast, just being an ability that's on the GCD, but something that does give you that guaranteed crit to fire up all of your Pyroblasts. Or you can instead use Phoenix Flames as a debuff to maintain on an enemy target, not really spamming it regularly, but something where you want to keep the debuff rolling and only refreshing it when it's about to fall off. So because of this inconsistency of how you use Phoenix Flames, and there's all the other ways Phoenix Flames can even buff other abilities, they just transferred Lit Fuse from Phoenix Flames to Fire Blast just so you can get it more consistently. You're firing off Fire Blast left and right, while for Phoenix you may be holding it for very key situations, so this change only makes sense. They also buff the damage of Lit Fuse, or rather Living Bomb, by 100%, and then there's all these other talents that keep amplifying the damage of Living Bomb, which will likely make it maybe potentially a go-to talent with just how much support there is for the Lit Fuse type of playstyle, even to make it kind of a decent playstyle that can also be working in single target situations. With that being said though, we'll also see that a lot of the Phoenix Flame talents have been readjusted. You have Phoenix Flames down here with Call of the Phoenix, where it gains an additional charge and does 50% more damage, or Majesty of the Phoenix, where when Phoenix Flames hits 3 or more targets, your next 2 Flame Strikes have the cast time reduced by 1.5 seconds, and damage increased by 20% to make the Flame Strike Phoenix Flames Cleave combo a little bit more potent. Down here we have the Charring Embers, which is the Phoenix Flames debuff, which was the tier set I believe during the second raid of Dragonflight, if I'm not wrong here, which causes the enemy to take additional damage as long as the debuff is active. That has been moved up all the way from down here up here, so now you can pick up a debuff that you can kind of maintain at all times. This goes into From the Ashes, where direct damage spells to targets afflicted by Charring Embers help reduce the cooldown of Phoenix Flames by an additional second. This does not work for AoE abilities. This is just a primarily single target thing, so a Pyroblast and single target focus builds with Ignite type of playstyle will end up being a little bit better with From the Ashes, as it has to be direct damage, not damage hit by a cleave ability. And further down, the Phoenix talents themselves also have been adjusted, going from Ferret Incantations, you end up picking up Phoenix Reborn. When you direct damage spell hits an enemy 20 times, which used to be tied to the enemy's debuff by Charring Embers, but they have actually changed it to it's just direct damage abilities hits any target 20 times. The damage of the next 2 Phoenix Flames is increased by 200%, and the refund a charge on use. So you don't have to be playing the debuff playstyle of the Phoenix, but you can still pick up the burstier version of Phoenix Flames from single target damage. Further down we have Ashen Feather. If Phoenix Flames only hits a singular target, it deals 50% increased damage and applies Ignite at 100% effectiveness, which gives it a more single target type of a playstyle. Besides this, we have a few more adjustments such as Kindling, which now benefits directly from Flame Strike. Flame Strike critical strikes reduce the remaining cooldown of combustion by 0.2 seconds up to a maximum of 1 second. Further down below, they even added even more changes to the Unleashed Inferno to help support combustion. During combustion with Unleashed Inferno, the damage of your Fireball, Pyroblast, Fire Blast, Scorch, and Phoenix Flames is being increased to 60%. But combustion is also going to amplify the damage of Flame Strike by 35%, with the value also being slightly increased. I think this is mostly a change just to try to see if they can make something that's competitive to Sun King's Blessing, as they keep trying to nerf this talent and buff this one, but it's good to see that they're at least trying to make certain talents a bit more competitive, although I prefer them just buffing a talent than nerfing the other. But we'll see what other changes they'll bring over the next few weeks, because I'm pretty sure mages are going to continue getting changes over the next few weeks. And now we can move on to the spec of Arcane, which is generally my personal favorite besides Frostfire Fire Mage combo that I've been able to experience over on the alpha, which has become one of my favorite builds. But Arcane still is one of the specs I'm probably the most hyped for, just because their talent tree has gone through such a big set of changes. This week though, they did see quite a few of their talents here and there get reduced in terms of the cost. So basically most of their talents, or at least a huge majority of them, are just a one single talent point cost, except for a gate here and a gate here that opens up to a couple other viable options. But besides this, they also have taken a couple of things such as Arcane Debilitation taking place of Arcane Battery. Oh, before we even get into any of the actual class talents, they did rework how clear casting works. So they wanted to adjust clear casting so it no longer functions off of your mana specifically. And it doesn't really reflect right now in the tooltip, but the way clear casting is supposed to work now is clear casting chance to trigger no longer tied to mana spend. It now just has a flat 10% chance to trigger when casting any damaging spell. Though not all aspects of this work, because you can just keep spamming Barrage, which has a 0 mana cost, and I haven't been able to get a single proc of clear casting off of it so far. So what it seems what they might have been able to do is adjust the proc rate of clear casting down to 10%. Though the only abilities they can't proc clear casting is anything that still spends mana. So things like Arcane Orb can now proc clear casting. So that's going to be a pretty massive change. They are trying to take away the whole mana cost, specifically. It's just all about casting offensive spells in order to be able to gain clear casting procs, which may mean that Arcane mages might be able to run around spamming Arcane Barrage in a mobility heavy scenario just to build up the charges of clear casting and then utilize it in order to have a big burst combo, which could be kind of fun. Oh, also the Arcane Familiar is now a little bit different. You'll notice the Arcane Familiar is no longer a random little arcane orb. Now it's like an actual familiar, like a D&D style familiar. As an Arcane Mage, you can get a Raven, and hopefully they'll add glyphs so you could have different types of familiars. Not just flying kinds, but like imagine a little cat or like a fox or something running around casting arcane abilities as you attack the enemy target. I think that's actually a really cool change. It's very nice, a very flavorful change, and it functions exactly the same as the Arcane Orb in terms of its mobility. Now it just has a different model, which I like a lot. I guess I also did end up buffing Arcane playstyle or Arcane Familiar with a talent called Energized Familiar. During Arcane Surge, your familiar now fires 4 bolts of Arcane on nearby targets instead of just 1. The damage from your Arcane Familiar has a small chance to grant you 2% of your maximum mana, which is also pretty good. But they changed this so it no longer ties and works off of your Time Warp and Bloodlust ability and similar effects, but rather Arcane Surge, which is available a lot more regularly. So maybe it'll give familiar some solid interactions when it comes to the overall Arcane gameplay. Who knows? Time will really tell. But anyway, as we move on to some of these other talents, let's talk about some of the changes such as Arcane Battery adjusted to Arcane Debilitation. Damaging a target with Arcane Missiles increases the damage they take from your Arcane Missiles, Arcane Barrage, and Arcane Blast by up to 1%. And with how many Arcane Missiles you can cast at any enemy target, you can increase that damage debuff by quite a bit. But I'm just not getting any of them anymore. It used to be when you press Arcane Surge, you'll be able to get a bunch of them since the ability spends so much of your mana, but now it's just a 10% chance. As long as someone spends your mana, there's a chance for you to get clear casted, so you can be sitting here for a while really spamming these out. Hopefully they'll adjust this in the future build, but yeah, it does take a little bit for you to really get all those procs. But I was able to get 2 clear casting procs, so if you use it now, you end up stacking the damage video up to 8%, and using it again, it stacks up to 17, 18. So now Arcane Mages can set up a very bursty combo against an enemy if you can get a bunch of Arcane procs or Arcane clear casting procs all at once. And I kind of like Arcane being able to establish like really short burst windows for a moment every time you can manipulate one of your little buffs. So I really like this change altogether. And there's now new talents that support that playstyle also, with Time Loop adjusted to fit better to work with your Arcane Debilitation. So Time Loop now has you a chance, every time you apply a stack of Arcane Debilitation, 10% chance to apply another stack. And the effect can also trigger off of itself, so you can have a single Arcane Missile or a wave of missiles proccing this effect, and then re-proccing it again, so you can get really, really lucky at some points in a row. Down below that, which is Aether Attunement, also got adjusted. Consuming Clear Casting now has a flat 50% chance to grant Aether Attunement, which causes next missiles to deal more damage to your primary target and fire up to 4 nearby enemies, dealing additional damage. So now, clear casting can be used to apply multiple enemies with the damage debuff, which I think would be basically the return of the original Arcane Harmony Barrage mages, because now you can just kind of apply a big debuff on enemy targets. I feel like maybe depending on how you build your character, maybe just spamming your arcane explosions the entire time won't be the way to go. So you'll be using missiles on every clear cast in order to be able to establish a big go and then cleave enemies down, which could be a lot of fun. Then you also had another talent, Late Drinker Adjusted, also very similar to Arcane Delimitation. Consuming Nether Precision has a 50% chance to make your next Arcane Blast or Arcane Barrage echo. This is because both Arcane Barrage and Arcane Blast can now benefit from Nether Precision. So when this ability is echo, they repeat its damage at 25% effectiveness to the primary target and up to 4 nearby enemies. So you can only imagine what a proc together with Arcane Harmony build-up, all of these missiles flying off in every direction, and then a big barrage echo into multiple targets. This could create a very fun combo of just 5 target cleave type of mage, which I think could be really fun depending on how you build your character. Besides this, you also have one new talent added for Arcane Mages with Surging Urge. Arcane Surge damage is increased by 5% per Arcane Charge. This basically means you kind of want to build up all the damage, go for a massive Arcane Surge, and then start spending all of your resources, which I guess kind of works out with Arcane, but it just is a little bit of talent that you can add in here for additional pure damage. Besides this, we also got some very minor adjustments to the Sun Fury, as the actual Phoenix itself did get a few more visual changes. As you can see, the Phoenix is less of just like a bird that sits on the ground, but now it kind of just flies in the air, and also it does a much better job at focusing down your primary target. Previously, the Phoenix would just be kind of rambunctious, firing abilities in every direction, but now it'll have much better focus over your primary target, which I think is a very good change in the long term. They've also adjusted the talent tree just a little bit with Codex of the Sunstriders. They moved a portion of the Invocation Arcane Phoenix Spellsphere talent into the Codex of the Sunstriders, so summoning Arcane Phoenix grants you a spell Fire Sphere. Say that 5 times fast. Over its duration, your Arcane Phoenix will consume each one of your spheres to cast an exceptional spell, so now that kind of element, I guess, just get baked into one singular talent. But for the most part, yeah, the Phoenix is a little bit better as an ally. Yes, it will cleave nearby targets, but you can see it has a primary focus now. You used to be able to just attack everybody here, everybody behind you, every critter in the vicinity that it could reach, but now it has a bit more of that single target focus. It will cleave multiple enemies when they're stacked together, which is essentially what you want the Phoenix to do. But if you're just single targeting an enemy, the Phoenix will just prioritize that target specifically, which I think offers you just a little bit better overall control when it comes to playing Arcane or Fire, especially if you want that Phoenix to deliver a lot of that damage potential into that one single target that you're really focusing on, which overall is a pretty decent update. Although, you know what I noticed over the last few weeks, we've been covering Fire and Arcane quite a bit, but Frost hasn't gotten too many changes. Besides how they will be able to interact with some of their hero specs, they actually haven't changed at all. And I'm wondering if Frost maybe should get any additional changes, but I kind of want to pass this question off to you guys in the comments down below. With Fire and Arcane getting all the new tools and all the new things to play with, do you think Frost probably could use some kind of refresher, or do you think the spec is fine as it is going forward? Because on one hand, you don't actually add new complexity or a new way to really learn how to play Frost Mage altogether, but also it feels like Frost Mage is just kind of behind on some of the cool new elements that the other two specs just keep on getting. Let me know all of the thoughts in the comments below, but also let me know what you think about the changes to Fire and Frost, as well as the Phoenix change, as well as all of the different class changes. Do you like some of the new talents they're adding, like the choice between Dragon's Breath and Supernova, or Ring of Frost and Ice Nova? And what changes would you want to see going forward for you to even want to pick up or even try Mage going forward? Let me know all of the thoughts in the comments down below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.